Just a couple of hours ago, late this afternoon, the New York Times ran a story saying that Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is under federal investigation for playing some role in sex trafficking and potentially having a relationship with a 17-year-old girl. There are very few details in major news outlets tonight about this story. We have no background on it all and not even any very informed questions. Instead, we've invited Congressman Gaetz on the show to respond to these stories and give us his view of them.
I have not done anything improper or wrong. But what I am troubled by is the real motivation for all of this. Just tonight, Ted Lieu, a Democrat, is calling on me to be removed from the House Judiciary Committee. And I believe we are in an era of our politics now, Tucker, where people are smeared to try to take them out of the conversation. I'm not the only person on screen right now who's been falsely accused of a terrible sex act. You were accused of something that you did not do. And so you know what this feels like. You know the pain it can bring to your family. And you know how it just puts people on defense when you're accused of something so salacious and awful. But it did not happen. It is not true. And the fact that it is the basis of this attempt to extort my family tells a lot. And if the FBI and Department of Justice will release the tapes that they are in possession of, the American people will see what is really going on.
You just referred to a mentally ill viewer who accused me of a sex crime 20 years ago. And of course, it was not true. I never met the person. But I do agree with you that being accused falsely is one of the worst things that can happen. And you do see it a lot. Let's go back to the investigation. You say that it was or is underway. There was an investigation. What is the basis of that investigation? What is the allegation? That's really not very clear from these news stories.
Yeah, again, I only know what I've read in the New York Times. I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me, providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime. And I'm just troubled that the lack of any sort of legitimate investigation into me would then convert into this extortion attempt.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly. But I would like to know who. So they're saying there is a 17-year-old girl who you had a relationship with. Is that true? And who are they? Who is this girl? What are they talking about, the New York Times?
The person doesn't exist. I have not had a relationship with a 17-year-old. That is totally false. The allegation, as I read it in the New York Times, is that I've traveled with some 17-year-old in some relationship. That is false, and records will bear that out to be false.
How long has this investigation been going on? Do you know?
I don't know.
When were you first informed of it?
Again, I really saw this as a deeply troubling challenge for my family on March 16th when people were, talking about a minor and that there were pictures of me with child prostitutes. That's obviously false. There will be no such pictures because no such thing happened. But really on March 16th was when this got going from the extortion standpoint.
So what happens next? I mean, you can see there is this investigation, I guess a criminal investigation. I'm not quite sure where the sex trafficking part comes in. Again, for the fifth time, I don't really understand this story very well. But where does it go from here? I mean, you've made an allegation against someone by name on the air and accused him of trying to extort millions of dollars from your family. What happens tomorrow?
Well, what was supposed to happen was the transfer of this money that would have implicated the former colleague of these current DOJ officials. But that's obviously not going to happen tomorrow because the New York Times story was leaked in order to quell that investigative effort. So here's what needs to happen next. The FBI and the Department of Justice must release the tapes that are in their possession that were done at their direction. Those tapes will show that I am innocent and that the whole concept of sex charges against me was really just a way to try to bleed my family out of money and probably smear my name.
Carlson's worst night just kept getting weird and weird as Matt Gaetz kept dragging the Fox News host into things he just wasn't expecting to hear. Matt Gaetz, to Tucker Carlson's surprise, came in prepared, reminding Tucker Carlson an accusation he faced on Tucker's own show to his face. That was just some top-notch preparation and performance by Matt Gaetz. But the only catch was Tucker was totally unprepared. He was possibly thinking Gaetz will come in, tell a few stories, present his point of view, and then Tucker could just let his factory run at full speed. But instead, Tucker Carlson got something completely different. He was blindsided. A shell-shocked Tucker went into damage control mode as he tried to distance himself from Gaetz by saying this.
If you just saw our Matt Gaetz interview, that was one of the weirdest interviews I've ever conducted. That story just appeared in the news a couple of hours ago. And on the certainty that there's always more than you read in the newspaper, we immediately called Matt Gaetz and asked him to come on and tell us more, which, as you saw, he did. I don't think that clarified much, but it certainly showed this is a deeply interesting story, and we'll be following it. Don't quite understand it, but we'll bring you more when we find out.
But it was clear that Tucker Carlson did not see this coming, and even as the segment neared its end, Tucker just never really recovered from the shock treatment Matt Gaetz subjected him to. The Justice Department's investigation into Matt Gaetz started when Trump was still in office. So it was the Trump DOJ, not the Biden DOJ, that started looking into the details. Nearly every major news outlet has already covered Matt Gaetz' story, and the GOP is once again in the news for all the wrong reasons. Whenever sexual misconduct allegations pop up, both the parties react to them in completely different ways. Remember the media furor that erupted after allegations against Cuomo surfaced? I sincerely hope that the investigations lead to the right conclusion and justice is served. The Democrats did the right thing with Senator Al Franken. It was a near zero tolerance policy, and I hope the Cuomo's case does not blow up that policy. Remember Congresswoman Katie Hill? She made a mistake and she was forced to pay a heavy price over and above what was needed for it. But that is exactly what should happen when you seek office. But the GOP is keeping mum about allegations against Madison Cawthorn, and now we have a DOJ investigation into Matt Gaetz. Now, how many of you are ready to think that the GOP will at least come out and express what their stance is? No stance has been their stance for a while now. Thanks for watching. If you like it, please subscribe.